In the past, Saudi Arabia has gained a reputation for an economic reliance on oil and has now become the world's leading oil exporter. However, with growing environmental concerns coming from across the globe, the kingdom is now prioritising efforts to diversify its economy, spearheaded by its National Economic Development Strategy launched in 2016, the Saudi Vision 2030. One of the Vision's original delivery programs, the Financial Sector Development Program, or FSDP, launched the Fintech Strategy Implementation Plan, hoping to make Riyadh a global fintech hub, which in turn would support sectors spanning far beyond financial services, including retail, property, transportation, and healthcare. To find out more about how the kingdom is diversifying its economy and advancing its financial sector, we visited Riyadh, the country's capital and financial centre, to speak to some of the individuals who are positioning themselves at the heart of change. To better understand the history of the fintech and payment space in Saudi Arabia, we first sat down with Mohammed Ghanaian, CEO of Saudi-based digital bank D360.
Fintech has always existed, and the kingdom was a pioneer from the very start, in my opinion. Fintech has existed because anything to do with financial services, with technology means, is considered fintech. I think in the last 5 to 10 years, we've seen a revolution of fintech. I think the regulatory environment also was very supportive of that and an accelerator to the development of that. We see funding year on year increasing at double-digit growth, if not even more. Even despite the recent macroeconomic trends, we see it a growth segment.
Since its inception in the region, the fintech sector across Saudi Arabia has enjoyed significant growth. Munira Al-Sabir, the ecosystem project manager at Fintech Saudi, puts it into context just how much growth has been seen in the sector in the last few years.
So when we check the reports that we have and the data that we have here in Fintech Saudi, we can see a huge involvement here in Fintech industry in Saudi Arabia. So starting in 2018, we only had 10 Fintech companies. Checking our last report to 2022, we have 147. And in the 2 months coming from now, the latest annual report to Fintech Saudi is also coming. We have more than 180 Fintech companies here operating in the market.
Nauman Hassan, the Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa for Global Card Issuer Processor Paymentology, discusses how the priorities for banks and financial institutions have changed in the last few years.
What we have seen in the last 2 to 3 years is massive shift. If we roll back 5 years, 6 years, you can see the banks specifically concentrating on the number of branches that they have, or maybe the bulkiness of the operations, or maybe the balance sheets that are filled with debt. But now it's about the consumers. It's about what people think. It's about how can we make things simpler for the consumers. And this is where the technology and the banks are coming together. And the fintech, that is financial technology companies, are the torchbearers. And the collaboration between these two entities is making a lot of inroads when it comes to technology and fostering the fintech environment.
We also made the journey over to Tweak, a local fintech provider, to hear from its co-founder and CEO, Saeed Al-Bahari, about how the financial infrastructure has evolved in recent history in the kingdom.
Yeah, we have been experienced working in developed market, and we believe Saudi market has very good infrastructure in terms of payment. A few years ago, instant payment system, Saria, was launched in Saudi. Central Bank and Saudi payment company have really done amazing work in this area.
Having experienced so much growth in such a short period of time, Saudi Arabia now positions itself as one of the most attractive markets to outsiders. Hassan of Paymentology explains why government initiatives have been so important to put in Saudi Arabia in this position.
So Middle East is a hotbed of digitization these days. The current status is that every banker that I talk to wants to create a startup. Digitization is at its peak. There has been a lot of international companies that are looking for opportunities in KSA due to the sheer population and the GDP and the opportunities. Furthermore, what I see in KSA, there's a big void and there's a lot of room to bring new technology, new innovations, because the acceptance level of the masses is big. And moreover, people are keen to learn and they are being supported by the government. The government has a conscious effort of shifting the economy from a more traditional energy sector to the technology. And this is the reason why Saudi is at the forefront.
Much of this change and growth seen across Saudi Arabia has been enabled by the support given by the local regulatory bodies. However, speaking to D360 and its development of its digital banking offerings, we hear that this wasn't always actually the case.
At a time where there was no digital banking regulations. So we were honored to be part of the journey, even from the regulator standpoint, as a partner of ours, to go with them through the process and create the first draft together of the digital banking regulations. And once that happened and that option was put on the table, we have applied for the license from the very beginning, and with the intention of building a digital bank and a digital-only bank from the start.
As we've seen so much across the globe, the use of technology in financial services and institutions has been around much longer than the term Fintech. But as was the case for other global hubs, Saudi Arabia saw an acceleration in change when the concept became a governmental priority. The Financial Sector Development Programme, or FSDP, within Saudi Vision's 2030, looks to strengthen the fintech ecosystem. We take a look at why it's so important and what impact the programme could truly have on economic growth in the region. Fintech Saudi helps to explain the importance of the FSDP, how it is broken down into key drivers to help create jobs and fintech companies while enhancing investment and contributing to the country's GDP.
When we talk about Vision 2030, it actually lights an ambition inside us to become a more vibrant society to lead the growth of our economy. Talking about the economy and the growth of the economy means talking about technology, finance, having a better lifestyle. Fintech is actually one of the leading sectors that supports Vision 2030. As I mentioned, we have part of FSDP, the Financial Sector Development Program, which is one of the 13 programs of Vision 2030, who worked on the fintech strategy. So the fintech strategy basically comes with 6 drivers aiming on the development of talent, the regulatory framework, the technology, the market and fund, the market positioning, and the collaboration, with 4 main objectives and goals, which is to have 525 fintech companies by 2030, 1,800 fintech jobs, and 12.2 billion cumulative investment, and 13.3 contribution to the GDP.
Al-Buhari explains which single fintech goal he feels is going to have the biggest impact on individuals across Saudi Arabia within the FSDP.
Having a cashless society that will definitely impact the economy for the market, and also having a good payment systems will improve the quality of life for individuals.
To better understand how paymentology is supporting Saudi Arabia to achieve the goals set out by the Vision 2030, we asked Nauman Hassan which area of the development strategy it can help with the most.
There is a clear-cut requirement of Vision 2030 that 70% of the transactions should be cashless by 2025. So paymentology can bring the products that are very consumer-centric, that can help to attain or help to fulfill the expectation. Paymentology can elevate the knowledge. Paymentology can help in collaborating with multiple players of the ecosystem to provide that very customer-centric experience to the consumers.
Speaking with Fintech Saudi, we also learned which benefits the FSDP has already delivered to the fintech ecosystem since it started in 2016.
The sandbox regulatory environment is now open all year round, where new fintechs can be introduced every day and enter the market. And all of these efforts are with the objective to increase financial awareness and financial literacy amongst the entire population, something that D360 would like to be at the center of.
The COVID-19 pandemic became a catalyst for change in how people made payments, dramatically accelerating a global trend towards cashless economies. This trend towards cashless payments has also been seen in Saudi Arabia. In fact, it has a plan to make 70% of all transactions cashless by 2025. Tweak and Paymentology explain why this trend is important and how the kingdom's young population could play into Vision 2030's hands.
since the population, especially if you talk about Saudi Arabia, 55% of the population is under the age of 30. These are the generation that I call as Instagram or TikTok generations. They have the smartphones in their hands. So the technology will be basically to enable methods using these smartphones, faster methods of transacting.
Payment has a direct impact to the quality of life, and also having cashless society will reduce the cost of cash holding and even the velocity of money to be circulated between other parties. So this is really important to all parties, from businesses, from individuals, and from the whole economy itself. So that's something that really we are keen to contribute to.
D360 explained how the end user experience is being transformed, both on the front and back end.
So I believe there's a very big shift in customer expectations today when digital to the digital offerings in place today. So we believe that we can become the bank in the background for you to be able to fulfill all your financial needs, while we're an enabler and a supporter to that. And the user experience comes at the central of that, right? So we need to be very close to our customers, and we built our organization as well as our technology stack in a way to make sure that we are very responsive to their behaviors, understand where their needs are, and come up with a data-driven approach to any new product offerings or service that we'd like to introduce. And as I said earlier, from a customer expectation standpoint, today the customer looks at finance as part of as an embedded feature in their regular journeys in life. And we built our systems and we built our technologies in a way in order to support embedded finance and make sure that we're a very intuitive experience for the customers.
These are exciting times due to large advent of technology companies coming into Saudi Arabia. The gap between the consumer and banking is reducing.
One factor crucial to success for any fintech, bank, or other financial institution has always been collaboration. This is no different for Tweak as it embarks on its own growth journey.
So, as a startup, we are very keen to build the right partnership, and the same thing applies to MasterCard. We have very good engagement with them, and we are working with them to provide a very innovative solution to the market.
It's also not just fintech companies themselves looking to build partnerships with other global firms in the ecosystem and companies around the world. Collaboration is also a major part of Saudi Arabia's plans with Vision 2030. One partner that has been happy to share his expertise and learnings is the United Kingdom. In many cases in the financial world, the UK has become a trailblazer when it comes to developing and implementing new solutions. Paymentologist Hassan explains how Saudi is implementing the lessons learned in the UK.
So Paymentology was at the forefront when the digitization was at its peak in the UK. We were fortunate enough to work with the big players, and we are bringing that experience, knowledge to Saudi Arabia. Furthermore, in terms of the collaboration, we have worked very closely with entities such as Saudi British Joint Business Council and the UK Department of International Trade. The UK government and the Saudi government are very close, and that is how these bodies are helping to foster the relationship and to promote the partnership between the business entities in both the countries.
One organisation leading the way in collaboration between the UK and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is the SBJBC. We sat down in London to speak with their director, Chris Ennis-Hopkins, to understand how they are facilitating collaboration.
So we can help by giving access to UK expertise, and that includes professional services companies who are working in Saudi, who give advice and consultancy on the ground, and you see that happening in a big way through several of our members like PwC and Deloitte, who are very active on the ground. But equally, we can share experience and broker relationships, and you see that happening with the relationship between the Saudi Central Bank and the Bank of England and the FCA. And there was a good example of that is in the fintech sector, where they looked at what we'd done to promote open banking and to launch a sandbox to actually trial companies, and they adopted many of those facets in Saudi Arabia.
As we have learned, fintech in Saudi Arabia is not only flourishing, but also developing at a significant pace. With the commitment of the government, regulators, and the Saudi Central Bank, digital transformation is accelerating faster than in many other countries across the globe. With this in mind, what could the future of finance really look like in the region? To try and understand the answer to this question, we asked each of our experts what their expectations are.
Yeah, payment is a contextual thing. So you find different type of payment, different type of markets. So you find China, they are going into more like a QR payment. You have market like Saudi and Europe, which is card-based, the same thing for even US. But I believe over time, money will be moved more efficient. There will be less cost for the merchant, for the consumer to transfer their values. And with the initiative like central bank digital currency and others, I believe by 2030, a lot of things will happen in the payment, and it will be definitely different than what we have today.
So I think you're going to see a big growth in the number of fintechs in Saudi. At the moment, we're talking about 150 fintechs, which has grown from a very small number, but the target by 2030 is for over 500. And I think they're well on the way to that. There's an explosion of entrepreneurship in Saudi, particularly by women starting their own companies. And I think you're going to see Saudi turning into a regional fintech hub.
The financial industry is a very dynamic industry, changing and ever evolving, progressing to the better. And the kingdom is no different. In fact, I believe that the fintech industry in Saudi Arabia is progressing a lot quicker than many other parts of the world, including developed economies, in line with Vision 2030 objectives and financial sector development program, especially with the support of the Saudi Central Bank, who has been a pioneer in this area and very progressive in the way they approach introducing new regulations in a measured way, protecting the customer, but making sure that innovations continue at a large scale.
So the way I see fintech contribution to our life in 2030 is I can see that people being more engaged to using fintech solutions. Happily here in Saudi Arabia, we have a very high adoption to fintech solutions. However, our own ambitions is to see more and more people using fintech solutions, more innovative fintech solutions, coming outside of the Saudi market, leading the global market in the fintech. And actually, what is the main goal behind Vision 2030 is what I mentioned, to have a better lifestyle. I believe fintech will have a huge contribution to that for the people here.
Overall, it is clearer than ever that the methods of moving money are set to drastically evolve, supported and regulated by Saudi Arabia's central bank to ensure the protection of its consumers. The continued support from the government through Vision 2030 will generate more fintech adoption, allowing the population a better lifestyle, creating many more fintech companies with innovative solutions that can begin serving the global markets. Thank you for joining us on our journey across Saudi Arabia. To find out more about how fintechs are evolving worldwide, follow the Fintech Times on LinkedIn to comment and debate the topics covered with our community. We'd finally like to thank all our amazing contributors: Paymentology, Fintech Saudi, D360 Bank, Tweak, and the Saudi British Joint Business Council.